mic test.
I'm
working that into the show somewhere.
Perfect.
Operation FreeSoul.
This is the FreeSoul Podcast, and I'm here with one of my favorite human beings. Fun fact, I'm actually married to her, unofficially. This is Grace Loescher, someone who is amazing and has done so much for the city, continues to do so much for the city, and even though we're married, I'm honored to have you on my show.
Hey, Dave, and hey, podcasters. I am so excited to kick it with you today. Thank you for having me.
So I've got to ask, because you run this wonderful program called the Creation District. If you could just tell us a little bit about like the services you provide and all of that really quick.
Awesome. Thanks for asking. Yeah. So the Creation District, sort of my heart and soul. Essentially, it's a safe haven, a brave space for young adults experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity in Sacramento and beyond. So we're serving youth who are primarily between the ages of like 16 and 25, though we don't have hard limits. We do a lot of different things. We're about to open a new building, which is really, really exciting, but we've provided like an open arts and music studio. So Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., young people can come in and have access to free art supplies, instruments, take things home, canvases, pottery wheel, whatever they want. And then twice a day, we have workshops that are taught by local artists, such as the host of this podcast. Things like freestyle meditation with Spacewalker, or video art with Andrew Defy, or music lab with So Much Light. And then we also have a youth record label. So young adults can come in, record their music for free, have the opportunity to get it out in the world, participate in album release shows. But essentially the idea is just to have a safe space, a creative community, a place where you're seen for more than just your housing or income status. And you just really get to try out and experiment with your creativity and your own identity.
That's the wild part for me, is that you offer so many different programs, and it's really, from what I understand at least, it's just you running the show pretty much.
Right now, yeah, primarily kind of the puppeteer of a lot of things. Then we contract with so many cool local artists, I think is what, allows us to have a diversity of tactics, because I am not able to teach, so many things that the artists are able to teach. That we're hoping, writing for some grants right now to be able to get a few more full-time staff to help us run the record label, or do some mental health support, shelter navigation, that sort of thing.
Damn, yeah. And you got into this whole scene, well, you started off doing improv. That's where we met.
Yes.
I feel a little bit weird because it's kind of like, I don't want to be like, so who introduced you to poetry? And kind of leading questions. But when you first got into the scene, I'm so curious what you thought of the poetry scene here in Sacramento.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was so cool. So I'm originally from Washington, D.C., and I've always, written poetry on my own. But I've just never had a community of poets. And so I kind of primarily got introduced through attending, like Midtown Out Loud open mics back in the day at Shine. And just seeing people like you, other poets, just sharing their stuff bravely on the stage, and watching one another, no matter what you said, no matter what you stumbled on or what you were trying out, just kind of like affirm the fact that you were willing to speak your truth, was so mind-numbingly inspiring. I had never considered in my life reading a poem out loud, and then to just know that, I was going to be really like seen and held by other community members who got it. I was like, I have to be a part of this. Yeah.
And were you exposed to Andrea Gibson, who I know you're a big fan of? Were you exposed to her before or after you started?
Before, yeah. I have a vivid memory of sitting, like the first car I drove at my parents' house, sitting outside in the car for hours, just listening to their album like on loop. And just a big fan.
So throughout the time I've known you, you've had this wonderful kind of journey of growth. I've seen you grow a lot, and you've always been personable from what I've noticed. But in terms of the sense of self-confidence, I guess, that you're able to project into the world, what was that like when you first started? Like, what triggered that sense of need to grow?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think, a lot of it came from like so many young people, right? I moved to Sacramento when I was 22, and I had a million kind of big dreams or ideas that I just kind of always thought would stay as dreams. And then when I got here and was able to access spaces, with other artists, other poets, other dreamers, and saw that when people had an idea, everyone around them really yes-anded that, and it was just like, of course you can do that. And I think that being in a space where I can remember talking about early ideas around the Creation District and just kind of having a room full of people be like, hell yeah, you can do that. And we've got a space for you. And we've got, cameras you can use and mics you can use and guitars you can use. And just watching people kind of be like, yeah, you can do this. And your dreams are worthy. And we believe they can come to life was so inspiring and necessary. And I think has colored everything I do from here on out.
Hi there. I wanted to take a quick break from the podcast to talk to you about a little product I like to call support. Support's something we all need these days, and something I've had a problem with my whole life. See, as a kid, I didn't really know how to ask for support, so I did things like wallow in my bedroom, kick it in my house waiting for them to call instead of me calling them, and starting a one-person podcast where I interview myself about my own thoughts, and suffice to say, it never goes well. And if you find yourself having life problems like I used to, go ahead and get support. Support has not been approved by the FDA, and Operation FreeSoul makes no claims to any benefits or negative outcomes of having support. Seek support at your own risk. Call your doctor if you experience any side effects while using support. Support! We all need it. Now back to the show.
So really, Sacramento affected you a lot in that aspect. Were you, because, okay, I'll put it this way. The first birthday that you had in Sacramento was such a wild thing. We were over at a place called Comedy Sports, which as of now is closed down. And you didn't have, you knew people there.
Dave, I had no
nice
friends.
Yeah, no friends. I'm trying to beat around the bush about it. Trying to be nice. You didn't have any friends. And you threw on this amazing birthday party that I still regret not going to this very day, where there was paint fights and writing letters to Congress people and just all sorts of wonderful things. And I've got to know, in Washington, was that Grace, or was that something you decided you were going to be when you came here? Because I know when, for instance, I used to live in New Hampshire, and on the plane ride from New Hampshire to Sacramento was kind of where I decided I need to make a lot of big life changes. I used to be a very angry person. So I'm wondering if you had that kind of transformation, moving, you decided, you know what, I need to switch some things out about myself.
Certainly. Yeah, that is such a great question. Well, I think that, I think a lot changed when I moved here. And mostly, for anyone who's made a big physical move like that or a big change in your life, you have to, no matter where you're at, give up a lot. You make a lot of sacrifices. You have to be really brave in doing that. And you have to sort of fully trust yourself and what you're leaping into. And so I think I felt like in the past, I'd always hoped that I would find community who kind of, shared similar values and wild ideas like paint, sumo wrestling, or whatever it was. But I think when I came here, I was like, I've given up so much. I'm risking so much. I'm trying so much that I just have to fully and unapologetically lean into building the community that I want to see, or else none of this is worth it. And so, I think a lot did change in making that leap.
Interesting. So how would you describe yourself back in Washington?
Well, I think I've always had a lot of the same sort of values, ideals. Definitely sort of weird and wild personality traits. But I think that a lot of them were watered down or subdued. I was definitely, just in terms of being my queer identity, it was super closeted. For a lot of that time, it was really hard to, just figure out how to be fully myself. I was just kind of fighting against a lot of that. I'd always known that I wanted to do kind of arts and social justice work with folks who were unhoused or needing, just needing intervention and support. But I think I was trying to funnel myself into, a lot of people were like, oh, you should work at Disney and do graphic design. And I was trying to kind of fit myself into these identities that weren't really true to myself. So it was a really cool moment to just be like, God, even if I have no friends or none of this works or whatever it is, I'm going to rest assured that I'm being fully myself and embrace that.
Honestly, that's so rare, and I appreciate that. Because you now it's gotten to the point where you're running the Creation District, which is doing so many. Even through COVID, you've been doing workshops and stuff for unhomed youth, which is amazing in and of itself. And being completely safe about it, for the record, outdoor events and such. And I guess So you started the program, if I remember, or the organization through Waking the Village.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about Waking the Village. I was a part of it for a little bit.
Yeah.
I never fully understood exactly what it does.
Yeah. Waking the Village is my also whole heart and soul. I feel like I owe so much of my journey to, Midtown Out Loud, which I give a shout out to, and then Waking the Village, which is an organization that's existed since about 1999 that works to support youth and young adults experiencing homelessness, particularly parenting youth. That's where they started in a myriad of different ways. So they run transitional living programs, which if you're not familiar, they're really cool because it's more than just like a 30-day shelter. It's a 1.5 to 2 years of programming where you get a safe space to live. You live in community. You get to really, just have time to figure out who you are and a minute to breathe and become secure. And so when I started as a sort of a case manager. We call it a coach at one of those transitional living programs called Tubman House. And it was just these 2 programs. We served 8 youth at the time. And then it expanded just kind of more and more beyond that. They opened now 4 more houses on top of that. Audrey's Emporium of New Tomorrows, which is a transitional living program specifically for LGBTQ plus identifying youth. We just opened a new emergency shelter for parenting youth, which is really, really cool. And the first shelter devoted specifically to parenting youth in Sacramento. And it just does so many really cool and radical interventions based on what youth are saying they need and not just kind of what funding streams are demanding. So they're amazing. I highly recommend looking into their work and seeing how you can join in on some of the cool movements.
Yeah, and as I understand it, Creation District actually started as kind of like your plan, but also under the...
Yeah, it is a program underneath Waking the Village, which is really cool because it allows us to sort of, kind of partner in youth who are going through like some of these transitional living programs or shelters are able to have immediate access to that as well. And we're able to kind of offer arts programming to those youth as well as youth who are completely disconnected from that system. It's awesome.
I'm just sitting here like, oh my God. Oh, my wife's amazing. Absolutely. Love you. Yeah. Just a quick bit about the wife part. We had a fake wedding. I've got to point this out every time that we meet new people, and hopefully this is going to meet a lot of new people. So, we had a big fake wedding after a breakup that happened, and you decided that you wanted to make a whole list of things to do over the summer to get over the breakup. And one of them was have a fake marriage, and you tagged me in it, and I was like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. So I proposed to you at a show that I was hosting that you were performing at. And then we had engagement photos, which are adorable. I'll try and include a couple with the podcast at this point. At the 12-minute mark, David, make sure you remember that in the future. And then we had Spacewalker, who was Prince, who actually... What's the word I'm looking for?
Officiated?
Officiated.
Yeah.
I was going to say pastorialized, and that's not a word. So, officiated the ceremony. Our couple dogs as ring bearers and flower girls. Pinata full of condoms and lube, because why wouldn't you?
A pool noodle altar.
Yeah. That's right, the pool noodle altar, which amazing set building by Grace and
Anna,
thank you. Yeah. In this big backyard that you used to have at this house that you've actually put on even more strange events at.
Yes.
You've been able to... I feel like that was a place where you really got to open up with just how weird you wanted to be, because so much was just kind of open to you.
Absolutely. I couldn't believe we had, what felt like a built-in venue in our backyard. And I have this kind of rule sometimes when I have like a really big and wild idea, I try to find a way to firmly commit or announce it before I can think through it too quickly to make sure it happens. And that's how so many strange, kind of parties and events occurred back there, such as backyard musicals, little festivals, Burning Man spin-offs, or kind of just different strange
time
parties.
out. Burning Man spin-offs? I don't think I heard about that.
We did a Burning Woman or Burning Person event one summer that was just sort of like a big art festival where we made a bunch of things and then burnt it, and it was sort of if you don't have access to going to Burning Man, let's jam together in the backyard, and it was really fun.
I love how your mind works, especially on something that you said that really spoke to me was how you just commit to doing it and you announce it before you have time to think. Because I feel like we work similarly in that regard, where I can outthink myself out of doing anything. Yes, including taking a shower. Yep. So the more you just kind of jump into it, the better off it is.
Absolutely. So the human mind works. You have to get ahead of yourself.
When did you figure that one out?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, great question. I think, again, when I would find that, whether I'm kind of out at a show or an event or some out in community, and I would have an idea and I would say it out loud, and I heard people just kind of being like, yeah, that's really cool. I think I found that people would say yes to anything that someone else really believed in or was behind. And I was like, if I don't believe in this, no one's going to come or no one's going to do it. Or people, if I share all my doubts, they're going to, of course, hear those. But if I just share the reason that I'm so confident and and believe in it and just kind of like have my whole heart behind it, then my community is going to have my back. And of course, there's trial and error. Of course, there's a million lessons learned. And each time, I try to learn more and do better. But I think it's been really cool to see that, yeah, if I'm believing in something wholeheartedly, and if anyone's believing wholeheartedly in their idea or their truth and doing it mindfully, then people have got your back.
and it shows, like, just in the way that you're talking right now, we've gone over so many subjects and we're only like 15 minutes in. And you're able to just process and run through information really quickly in your head, I've noticed. And I want to ask, I've been asking a question a lot, but like, has that always been a thing for you? Have you always been just like very quick with it, or is that something that's developed over time?
Great question. I think, am I allowed to curse on here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think I'm a good bullshitter when I'm nervous. That's one thing that helps. I think like the good answer I want to give is, again, kind of, I totally believe in my ideas and I'm able to, just speak my truth and at the core of my heart. But I also think part of improv is bullshitting. And I mean everything I say, but that's helped me a lot in,
There's two kinds of bullshitting. One is where you're just out and out telling lies.
Yes,
and no commitment or anything like that. And then there's bullshitting like, yeah, I'm going to do this big project. And then you're like, well, I guess I have to do it now. Fuck.
Exactly. One of the best pieces of sort of advice I got from Bridget Alexander, one of the founders of Waking the Village, when I was starting the Creation District, and I was trying to kind of like pitch what it was. And she was like, just say exactly what you're going to do. Say you're already doing it definitively, because you are. The minute you say it, you're doing it. And just like, you have to believe and commit fully. And if you say like, we're aiming to, or we want to, or we're trying to, it's different than just saying like, today I am creating a radical safe haven for young adults experiencing homelessness. And then you've committed to it and you've said it. And so I think that really helps when I'm speaking about any ideas or dreams I have, is just kind of, I have to remember to continue to trust myself and believe in my ideas or my truth, because no one else will if I don't.
Yeah, and that harkens back to, I used to listen to Tony Robbins, for better or worse, for a long while. But one of the things that he said that I really agreed with is that the key to change is setting a new standard for yourself and saying like, this is who I am, exactly what you were talking about. This is who I am. This is the standard I'm setting. I refuse to live below this. And that's something that you do very well, I've noticed.
Thanks,
Dave. It's kind of like when you want to change, you go exactly what you're talking about. This is who I am. And then you just run with it as best as you can, and you figure it out along the way. And you don't always match up to it, but then you go like, okay, if I just like tweak this little bit here and I do this little thing here.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah, I hella see that in you as well. And I think it does work really well. And it works in the reverse as well, in terms of like taking accountability and the things I'm able to say like, whoo, this is where I missed the mark. And this is where I need to grow. And this is what I'm learning. And that's been a really cool part of this journey too, as confident as we are in saying like, I am doing this, being able to say like, damn, I did not do this as well as I wanted. And here is what I'm doing to change that. And that's been a really cool part of this journey as well for myself, being able to admit failure.
And that's the other side that a lot of people don't get, is they go like, oh, okay, so the standard I'm going to set is that like I'm perfect and no one can mess with me. And then suddenly they make a mistake or they hurt someone and they immediately go, well, but I'm perfect. So no, screw y'all. Like I'm doing right. I'm doing by me. And I've never gotten that impression from you. In fact, I can't even picture Grace being like that. Just being like, nah, fuck y'all, I'm out.
I'm gentle.
Speaking of being gentle with yourself, I thought I'd take a moment just to talk to you a little bit about a product that I love, which is the block button. If you find yourself in an argument with someone who really doesn't want to listen, or a family member who thinks that they know everything about you and they can tell you about your life, use the block button. It's a great button. I use it every day pretty much these days. People want to dictate to you what your life should be, and the fact is, they're not you. And 9 times out of 10, it's coming from a place of dissatisfaction within their own heart. So use the block button. Block button. When their ignorance gets too loud, shut them out. Alright, now back to the show.
I would love to a little more talk about your experience as someone part of the LGBTQIA plus group, and especially from the aspect of poetry. I've asked Kun the Poet, when Kun the Poet was on, I asked him what it was like as a Black performer in this community, and do you feel like you're respected from all sides? As someone who is LGBTQIA plus, how do you feel in terms of how the community accepts you and allows you to perform your poetry on your terms?
That's a great question. Yeah, thanks for talking about that. And I think it's such a cool part of our art to talk about how our identities and privilege like play into that, because obviously, and I think it's important in every one of these conversations to acknowledge all the privilege I do carry. I'm a hella cisgendered white woman, and I'm housed, and I have a college education, and all of those things afford me a lot of privilege and the ability, it's debatable if I could pass as straight, probably not. Yeah, you see that in my tiny short hair and flannel shirt, who knows? But I can, certainly acknowledge the amount of privilege that I do carry when I walk into any space. And so I think that changes the game. I think in terms of my queer identity, like you, I have performed at so many different places. And a lot of times when you're performing, you don't even know what it's going to be like until you get there. And so there's been many times, I remember the show in my head that's coming to mind, where someone had booked me to perform at some show, and I get there, and the wall is plastered in American flags, and then the crowd is sort of just like primarily older white folks, a lot of what appear or passing male gendered folks, and it was just hilarious, because a lot of my sets and my poetry is about my queer identity, is like unapologetically talking about depression and suicidality, talking about my conflicted feelings around religion and kind of that process. And so I think it's I think it's an interesting moment to decide each time as an artist, I'm going to be unapologetically true to my art. And if people walk out, they walk out. And if people don't vibe, they don't vibe. And I would say overall, in most settings, particularly, in Sacramento and around, I feel hella accepted, hella seen and heard in that, and affirmed. But then there's, of course, definitely been those times where I leave a show and I'm like, okay, we'll just wipe our hands of that one, and it didn't vibe. But I think it's a really cool moment each time as an artist to just decide, this is who I am, this is my art, take it or leave it.
Yeah, and obviously without mentioning names directly, unless you really want to.
Mm-hmm.
But are there places in Sacramento or places that you've gone to before where you're like, you know what, I really don't want to go back there because I don't feel like they quite accept everything?
Great question. I can't think of specific places off the top of my head, but I will say different I think open mics or different things can be tricky depending on the crowd that is there and the way that people respond to the crowd. I think, for example, something I appreciate at Speak Out Sac, which is the open mic I've been hosting for a while, is that there is such an understanding of sort of our safe space agreements or our house rules that we know in that space. I mean, we explicitly state it, but also there isn't going to be explicit homophobia, racism, sexism, transphobia, whatever said on stage. And that person will not walk out the door without being stopped by 100 people along the way who will have something to say. They will not get to finish that set. Yeah. And I think I've been in other spaces where you can see people's discomfort, but when we see that, people's freedom of speech or expression of art is able to kind of trump these ideals that we carry, then for me, I'll think I don't necessarily want to jam in a space where we're not comfortable saying we can't have that here. And so I really, I do look for spaces where it feels like both the community, the venue, the host, everyone has an understanding of we're going to do our best, knowing that no place we can guarantee safety, but we're going to do our best to try to create a shared sense of understanding around what community values and ideals we want to hold here.
Yeah. And you do a magnificent job as a host, just in general, but also especially on setting those guidelines. And Speak Out Sacramento it took over from Midtown Out Loud, right? Shout out to Heather Anderson.
Hey.
Love you wherever
We
you're
love
at
you.
on your wonderful adventure through college, I believe.
Yeah.
Still, yeah, go get them. And if you're ever in town, say hi,
Please.
Anyway, but you do a magnificent job of setting that tone and that space. And on the topic of code switching, if you know, for those of you who don't know, code switching is basically depending on like what group you're with, you might change the way you present yourself or talk. Do you find yourself doing any code switching around like certain entities, like if you're talking to a government figure versus talking to someone who's just like one of your creation district kids or youth?
I think I've received criticism for maybe not doing that enough. Yeah, I definitely I struggle with that in the sense that, yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in the advocacy side of my work as well. So I am often meeting with public officials or sharing in like government spaces. But I think and I think that there's plenty of room to do that because I think you're always trying to speak a common language with somebody while still remaining true to your identity. But I have strong feelings around like toxic professionalism and the idea of like, oh, why do I haven't worn a bra in 6 years. Now all of a sudden I have to put a bra on to go into city council. I mean, I don't know where you're airing this, but I'll just say that. I like fuck bra culture or whatever it is, but kind of changing these arbitrary things in order to meet someone's idea of professionalism. Those can be tricky. But in terms of, I think, trying to communicate with someone directly around the things that they understand and speak the common language that they understand and humanizing, I think I will try to do that if I'm meeting with someone, a public official or whatever it is, really trying to understand why are you in this role? What are the things you care about? And what is going to help us relate as human beings in this moment? And I do try to, I think many of us who do any kind of work in like social services or whatever, you carry so much, or, won't speak for everyone. I certainly carry a lot of resentment towards the system and people who are in charge of the system. And so it takes a lot, sometimes I'll just do these long meditations before I go into a space to just think like, how can I humanize this person? How can I relate to them with the most, just kind of like compassionate lens I can while still being extremely true to holding them accountable to my own ideals, to what I see and to what I need.
Yeah. Speaking to that whole like the distrust of the system kind of mind state, when I got into writing grants as an artist for, I was part of the 2018 Mayor Creative Economy pilot program, and I got accepted into it, which I was shocked about in the first place. And then as I'm going through the process, there's always this thought in the back of my head of like, all right, but they're just like trying to, this whole program is just so the mayor can look good. This whole program is so the mayor can look good. And they don't really care about us. And if they could, they would yank the money out from under us. And like, I definitely didn't expect myself to have that strong of an adverse reaction. So, and you spoke to it a little bit. How do you fight that?
It's really hard. And I mean, the first thing I want to say is like, I certainly believe that everyone's, emotional reactions and a diversity of tactics are hella valid. So I think I don't ever think we should be like tone policing one another on the ways in which we respond to those. So for me, it helps me to kind of get in a state of feeling like, again, like I said, trying to be able to humanize and think, why would this person be in this role? And a lot of times, of course, I think people are motivated by money. So that's hard. I come to that as my bottom conclusion. But I think I like to try to believe or to try to find with each person, even the people I feel like most kind of misaligned with, there is something that they really care about, even if it's really different from the things that I prioritize. And then trying to view like the passion that they have for that issue. How can I kind of help them understand that is the passion I carry for this issue and this issue and this issue? And if we can sort of like, just empathize on our shared sense of humanity and human like passion for something, then we can then maybe like find a way to do that for anything. And definitely doesn't always work. I mean, there's people where I'm like, I'll stay away from kind of going into your office or whatever it is, because it's so triggering or so sort of like, we just can't find that common ground. But it really helps me to just try to figure out like, what is the thing that when you were a kid made you want to sit here, and how can I access that sense of just like human passion?
Yeah. And God, I love you. I love how your mind works. And I love the fact that even though you had no idea what I was going to ask today, you're just like You're wonderfully eloquent, and yeah, you're just a beautiful soul. I just love you so much.
I love you too.
The truth is a hard thing to find these days. It's so easy to craft a public image that other people find amusing, other people find endearing, that you sometimes forget to look inside yourself and ask yourself, is this really who I am? Well, that's why I like meditation. A good 30 minutes can do you a whole lot of good, even 5 minutes, even a long, deep breath on a break from work. Sit with yourself a little bit. Think about the world. Think about yourself and your place in it. Meditation. Is it in you? That one's... We can't use that one? Oh, it's copywritten. Right. Meditation. Just do it. Wait, we can't... That one? Are you serious? I don't even know what a Nike is. You're just making up words now, okay? It's nonsense. Whatever. Fine. Okay. Meditation. You know it. You know it. What do you mean that doesn't mean anything? You're not paying me enough to do this. Yeah, no. You know, okay, I'm just going to call my lawyer. That's it. I'm calling my lawyer. We're done here. No.
We're getting down close to cutting time here, but I did want to ask, you give off such a loving vibe to everybody. And often I've found, because I've been told I give off a similar vibe, that often I've found that people tend to miss out on other aspects of who I am. And they go like, oh, you're such a giving person. You're such a this, you're such a that. What's something that you wish people would notice a little bit more about you?
That's a really good point. Yeah, thanks for naming that. I think that, I'm just extremely, I think sometimes people, maybe you've experienced this, but I think this idea of like, if you're able to speak to these ideals, and these, these kind of things that you can say so clearly, this is what I believe, this is what I'm working towards. There's this idea that they might perceive that you think you are, kind of an infallible. And, I think I would just say, I know that I fuck up all the time. I mean, who doesn't? And I think that when I do, I am so sensitive, and I in a not in necessarily a fragility way, but in the way where like I carry that with me, and I think about it, and I churn about it, and I write about it, and I process about it, and I make lists for how I can do better. And I think that people, like, I try a lot of weird things, and I do a lot, and the more we do and the more we try, the more we fail. And I think for me is just that I know that, and I see that, and I'm always trying to do better, and trying to have compassion for other people who I watch in my community who do things and try things and fail, and just knowing that we are all always learning and growing. And so I think just to say that, like, when I talk about some of my ideals, or trying to create safe spaces, or believing in accessibility, or so many different things, I know that there's so many areas I have a long way to go, and that I'm gonna mess up, and I have messed up, and that I am, and that when I do, I just care so much, and I'm trying so hard, and I want to always have compassion when people do that for me, and just do the best I can to see people wholly, and to try to create space for like believing the best in one another. Yeah,
gosh, I feel like I could talk to you all day.
I love you.
I mean, there's a reason why we're married. And on the aspect of like the making lists and like going home and writing about it, she really does have like a series of notebooks at home. I've seen the notebooks.
So many.
Full of different art and, paintings and lists of like how you want to improve yourself and the world around you. And I think that speaks a lot to just how deep down you really are a wonderful human being. And I've loved every moment I've been able to spend with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. This is kind of last second. I hit her up while she's getting ready to go out of town. And she was like, oh, sure. Yeah, I'll just come by. So thank you so much for just even taking a moment.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave, for making the space, for always creating so much beautiful room for artists to be themselves and their full identity. You are just so cherished in this community. We love you.
I love you. And hey, if you're listening out there, I hope you're happy, and I hope you're doing what you need to do for yourself. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Operation FreeSoul is brought to you by Scott Scooters. Hey, if if you don't feel like walking, go on down to Scott Scooters. They'll put some wheels on your knees and have you off in no time. Scott Scooters. Don't go home without us, or we'll find you.